The sky was the first to betray them. It began as a faint haze, just a distant blur on the horizon, but within hours it thickened, swallowing the sun until the world dimmed into an eerie twilight. The air turned heavy, suffocating, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. And then came the sound, low, rhythmic, and relentless: war drums. Their thunder rolled over hills and valleys, announcing what was to come. Men, women, and children stopped what they were doing and listened. Somewhere far off, a horn blew, long and haunting, a sound that meant one thing: war. This was not a war of kingdoms. No flags, no glory. This was survival. A war so primal, so devastating, that it pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. Imagine standing there, your feet pressed into wet earth, smelling the metallic tang of blood on the wind before the first blade was even drawn. That was the moment humanity faced its darkest hour. A battle so violent, so merciless that some feared there would be no one left to tell the tale. But how did we get here? To understand this night, the night when humanity trembled, we must first step back into the world before the firestorm. Before the sky turned black, the earth was alive with competing tribes. Small bands of early humans carved out a fragile existence in forests, riversides, and open plains. They hunted, gathered, and told stories by firelight. Stories that spoke of gods, spirits, and the ancestors who watched over them. But beneath this fragile peace was a growing tension. Territories were shrinking as populations grew. Hunting grounds overlapped. One tribe's survival meant another's starvation. For generations, grudges built up like dry kindling waiting for a spark. And the spark was coming. You can almost see them. Warriors sharpening their spears. Mothers clutching their children tighter. Leaders arguing under the glow of the moon. They all felt it. The earth was on the verge of something terrible. What began as raids over food soon became acts of vengeance. And vengeance is never satisfied. The first strike was not on a battlefield, but in the dead of night. A rival tribe crept into an enemy camp, torches low, blades glinting like teeth in the dark. They struck swiftly and silent, brutal. By dawn, a dozen bodies lay cold on the ground, their fire still smoldering. The retaliation was immediate. Men painted their faces in ash and blood, swearing to erase their enemies from the earth. And so began a cycle of death. Ambush after ambush, raid after raid, each more savage than the last. Soon it wasn't just warriors dying. Entire villages burned, the screams of the dying carried across valleys. The war was no longer about food or territory. It was about annihilation. And then came the day when all of it converged. When both sides gathered everything they had left, every fighter, every weapon, to settle the blood feud once and for all. Before the sky turned black, the earth was alive with competing tribes. Small bands of early humans carved out a fragile existence in forests, riversides, and open plains. They hunted, gathered, and told stories by firelight. Stories that spoke of gods, spirits, and the ancestors who watched over them. But beneath this fragile peace was a growing tension. Territories were shrinking as populations grew. Hunting grounds overlapped. One tribe's survival meant another's starvation. For generations, grudges built up like dry kindling waiting for a spark. And the spark was coming. You can almost see them. Warriors sharpening their spears. Mothers clutching their children tighter. Leaders arguing under the glow of the moon. They all felt it. The earth was on the verge of something terrible. What began as raids over food soon became acts of vengeance. And vengeance is never satisfied. The sun rose blood red that morning. Across the plain, two forces faced each other, ragged, furious, desperate. Each man knew that this was it. There would be no retreat, no mercy. The battle began with a roar. Spears flew through the air like deadly rain. Shields splintered. The clash of bone and iron filled the air as the two sides crashed together. Narration slows, describing the chaos in detail. Mud turned to crimson as bodies fell. The earth shook with the weight of the fight. The cries of the wounded mixed with the shouts of the living until it was impossible to tell them apart. Hours passed, but no side relented. Warriors fought until their arms gave out, then fought with their teeth. Fire spread through the battlefield, consuming everything. It was not just a battle. It was a storm, and humanity was at its center, being torn apart. By nightfall, silence fell. Not the peaceful silence of sleep, the silence of death. When dawn came, it revealed a graveyard. Bodies lay strewn in the mud, faces frozen in terror, hands still gripping weapons that could no longer protect them. The land was burned black. Streams ran red. There was no victory song, no celebration, only the sobs of the few who survived wandering through the ruin, calling out for names that would never answer. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Some say only a handful survived that night, just enough to rebuild, to carry forward the fragile spark of our species. From that night forward, nothing was the same. Entire bloodlines were gone. Knowledge, traditions, and stories were lost forever, swallowed by the earth along with the dead. But something did survive. Perhaps it was the instinct to endure. Perhaps it was the lesson that survival is not guaranteed, that we stand on a razor's edge even today. And so we tell this story, not just to remember, but to remind ourselves, because somewhere deep down, the shadow of that battle still lingers. And if we forget how close we came to disappearing, we may one day repeat it.